So, hi, everybody. It's T Falcon Napier. Welcome to the Oracle of the Self. This is coaching session, I do believe, number 24, 23. I do lose track. But they are all up on the website, by the way. So if you guys ever miss one, I don't know if you already have bookmarked our YouTube page, but everything's up on the YouTube page, and I'm more than happy to send you a link to that anytime you'd like to. If you need it, so just let me know. All right, so last time around, we started talking about the early steps of the path of the ChangeWorks process, and it really does center around this thing we call the path of self-discovery. So last time around, we talked about each of the 5 steps that someone would walk along the path. And we also talked about a 6th step, which is actually above this path. It's the sky above this path. And we like to remind everyone, particularly our professionals, that we have to stay detached. If we're going to do decent work, we have to stay detached from whatever our client situation really is. Because if we get onto the path with them, now we might be exerting too much influence over what they're thinking and doing. We might be steering their mind in directions that really aren't ours to be steering them in. And so it's very important in the world of human development that we always maintain that that distance. We practice the art of caring detachment. We care about our clients very much and their outcomes very much, but we know the best way to do that is to just get out of their way and let them do it. So constant reminder for us to allow people to walk along their own path of self-discovery. So that's us. We're the blue. We're flying above. That's the other step in the whole process. But we were learning last time around about white, green, black, yellow, red, or you can just use the words current situation, desired situation, obstacles, solution, and these feelings, intuition, hunches, internal sorts of processes. We walked our way through it, and I said, now we're going to go through it again, and I'm going to give you some specific skills you might apply or some special tools you might want to insert in order to get the most out of that particular step along the path of self-discovery. And I introduced to you last time around, something we call the 4 aspects of control. Now, I was reminded after last week's call that because you guys have gone through an extremely non-standard, random, whatever kind of training in all things related to attention management, you didn't start where this whole concept of control is even introduced. And so there's a section of our program we refer to as the nature of change. And in the nature of change, we talk about what we believe and what we've been able to, research to find, support and inspiration around these beliefs, that change is what the human experience is really all about. And ultimately, the joy, the success, the whatever that we achieve in life is based on how good of a change agent we become for ourselves, for those we care about closest to us, et cetera, maybe for the people that we influence as part of our job. We also talk about that change is a part of every job someone does. If you think about what you guys do for a living or did for a living, as the case may be, that word change is somewhere involved in it. You are helping people to facilitate some sort of a change that without you, they might find more difficult, if not impossible. So one way, shape, or form, we've yet to find any job that doesn't involve change at some place within it. So anyway, point is, it's all about change, but we've been told people are resistant to change. Well, and I'm giving you guys the super gifted students program right now. People are not resistant to change. Just take my word for it and know that I could prove it with no trouble at all. People are not resistant to change. They're resistant to losing control. So you got to think about it. If you're going to make a change, why are you making the change? What do you want as a result of making a change? And one way or another, it all boils down to you change in order to gain or maintain control over whatever situation is involved. So why did you get an education? Why did you take a job? Why did you move? Why did you get in the relationships you were in? Why? At the end, at the heart of all those, the answer is going to some way or another involve control. You were trying to gain a greater level of control than what you felt you possessed. Um, and you certainly might have wanted to maintain control. So, for example, sometimes we make changes in order to ensure that something can stay consistent and predictable. And this is where a lot of different forms of insurance can come into play. So, you've established a certain level of control by having a home and having all of your possessions and having your car and having whatever. You don't want to lose that control. So, by purchasing some sort of an insurance product, you can very often mitigate the loss of control that a fire or a theft or a whatever might cause. And instead, the insurance is there to help you maintain this sense of control that you have over whatever that situation happens to be. So we change in order to gain or maintain control. Now, we will not change if we feel like we're already in control. Because if you're in control, why would you put that control in jeopardy by messing with it? And so people will not change if they don't think they can lose control, or we will. The word we get back to is resist, but we're not resisting change. We're resisting losing control. And that's a really, really big deal. And at some point, if you guys want to go through the nature of change at normal speed, I can point you to a video if you want to do it in 20 minutes, or I can spend a whole session walking you through everything there really is to know about the world of change. And by the way, just to take that to the point of tension management, even if you are feeling that you could gain control by making a change, even if you feel that you could maintain control by making a change, even if all of it makes total sense intellectually and you've got all the resources necessary to do something, that does not guarantee that you're going to follow through with the change. So while this whole aspect of control is vital to the way we go about valuing the change we're considering making, there's no guarantee that we're going to make it regardless of how much control we think it's going to give us or help us to maintain. Because there's another ingredient. That ingredient is tension. You have to find your current situation troublesome enough to bother doing anything definitive to change it. And so there has to be the tension of a problem that has to be solved or a threat in your environment. There needs to be tension, perhaps, about the urgency for taking advantage of an opportunity. Keep a fire under your feet, keep yourself moving. That's a form of tension. Sometimes we just need to do the things that help us to maintain life as we know it. We got to go grocery shopping. There's errands to run and chores to do. There are things that we need to get done. Well, need is also a level of tension. Above need is opportunity, above opportunity is problem. So we need to have enough tension in order to pay attention to whatever the change happens to be. And so I wanted to give you that as a quick background. I know there was a drink out of a fire hose, but I want you to know where this control thing comes into play and how it all fits into the world of tension management. Any questions, comments, concerns about anything I've shared with the nature of change?
Nope.
No, so far so good.
So far, excellent.
All right, all y'all that are muted, you know what I'm talking about. So now, if this was a sales training program, I would end this little section by saying to the sales reps, know this and know this well. If you are not getting the sale that you're looking for, it's not because the person is resistant to change. We got to stop using that as an excuse for our failure to produce whatever a desired outcome happens to be for ourselves or for others. We're not by nature resistant to change. In fact, we happen to be really, really good at change. As a species goes, I don't think you're going to find many that are as adaptive as we are. And so there's a lot going on. We're good at change, but we're smart people. We don't want to lose control. And so I would say to the sales representative, if the person is not ready to move forward, ask them a question related to control. So, in what way do you think you would lose control by purchasing our product, or in what way do you think you won't gain greater levels of control? Stop talking about change and start talking about control. And so you can apply this in your personal life very, very easily. The next time you're talking to a friend, family member, neighbor, whoever, and they seem to be resisting something, just ask them the question, in what way do you think you are losing control or would lose control by doing what I'm suggesting? Or it could also be that they don't feel like they would gain sufficient control to justify doing it. So sometimes it's just about a quantity issue. It's not, let's say, problematic enough that it's going to bring them enough control. And so they're going to hold off waiting for maybe another option, or some miracle to occur. But just kind of know this: stop talking about change, start talking about control, and you're going to end up getting to much more meaningful levels of awareness and discussion and insights and all that with whoever you happen to be talking to. Okay. So now I'll throw this to you guys as a little question. You're welcome to answer verbally, contribute if you'd like. But can you think of a person that you have interacted with in recent days, weeks, that you just said they're just plain resistant? They're just stubborn. They're just, I don't know what's wrong with them, but blah, blah, blah. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, think about what's really going on now. And I say to you, they're not resistant. They might be stupid, but we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say, they're intelligent. They're an intelligent person. So that has got to mean that somehow or another, in the way they are examining that situation, they're not feeling as out of control as you, as the person who's trying to influence them or who's surrounded by whatever their nonsense is, might want to go like, well, no, how can you not see this? How can you not see that? So you might see aspects of the situation that are much more problematic in terms of someone losing control or not gaining the control they want, that they're not seeing yet. Or it may be that you value those things more strongly than the other person values those things. But no matter what, their resistance is coming from a feeling of losing control or not gaining enough control to make it worth doing. So yeah, so have some fun with that. So Brian, you've unmuted. What would you like to throw in?
That's quite fascinating when I think about health,
Mhm.
because the the physicality of it I can see in people. So, I tend to have a higher value, I guess, than others, especially when it comes to like family members that are actually suffering from some things. And I keep telling them you have to get it checked out, or it would be good to do so.
Mhm.
And they just continue with the suffering. And so
Yeah.
it doesn't, in my mind, it doesn't make sense, because then you keep calling me and I keep having the same conversation.
Right.
So,
Yeah, so their control issues are messing with your control issues.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right. And so that's it. When you're saying, hey, you would be better off, your words are actually saying you would gain control if you did whatever I'm suggesting over how you're feeling or whatever you're not able to do, as the case may be. And so
Maybe
it's
they don't
all,
want control. Maybe they
I-
want sympathy. They want the empathy and sympathy.
right. And so what they don't want to lose is the control they have over getting you to baby them.
Ah,
It's always going to
Mm,
boil down control. They value the babying
mm,
more
yeah.
greatly than the issue at hand.
mm. That's
So
interesting. Because
it's
And
I'm
they may not
horrible.
even
I'm,
always,
realize it.
oh,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
they don't realize it. No, no, no. I mean, look, you have no idea how infrequently I've taught the nature of change and had anyone in the audience go like, "That's how I've always thought." No, they're always going like, "What do you mean we're not resistant to change? What do you mean it's all about control?" So
So what about the illusion of control for people who are,
oh, Brian, people spend all kinds of money, do all kinds of things all the time because they have the illusion that it's going to give them control.
mm,
And maybe somebody sold them a whole bill of goods that convinced them that they were going to gain greater levels of control if they would only do X, Y, Z.
Right, right. Because
Uh,
when you were talking, what I was reminded of is the management guru Clayton
mhm,
Christensen writes a lot about innovation. And when he talks to salespeople, he say people don't buy products, they hire products to solve a problem for them. And so
yeah.
I would add that on, like they hire products to gain control
Mhm.
of a situation.
Yeah, yeah. How we ended up with it is just creative financing. You know, did we outright buy it? Are we renting it? Are we borrowing it? Do we realize we're not going to keep it forever and we're only going to hold on to it for as long as it remains useful to us? Yeah, it's really, really an interesting thing. But point is, it's all about control. And we've already said for everything we've talked about up to now, that's really all about perceptions. I mean, is anything really going to give you control, or anything in isolation all by its little self? Is that going to give you the control? Or is it just a contributing factor in the direction of where you really want to go or end up, you know?
Mhm.
And so it's all perceptions. And yeah, there's a lot of people who are assuming everything is under control. So why change anything? Again, people change in order to gain or maintain control. They will not change if they feel like they're already in control. And so if they're down in power, apathy, or apathy, you know what happens to their perception of control. In power apathy, what do they have? Anyone remember? They're not in control. They have an assumption of control because they were recently in control and they know it. And so they assume, hey, it was okay a year ago. It should still be okay now. And then if they get down in apathy, that's when that assumption of control gives way to an illusion of control. Because again, when I start to
So,
assume something, I'm paying less and less conscious attention to it. As I move further and further down grid, less and less attention is being paid because people pay attention to where they find their tension. And so no tension, no attention. And so these things slip into an illusion of control and end up becoming very problematic, yet again, sooner or later.
T,
Yeah.
okay, I have a friend right now who's in the hospital,
Yeah.
and when I asked him about his situation, he deflected the response to his daughter, who's a nurse.
Uh-huh.
And so this deflection, but then he doesn't listen to what anybody says.
Yeah, right. And so again, it goes to control,
Hey, I know that guy.
So does he like think he's in control?
He does. He does not
Okay.
feel, again, people change. All right, so we describe the threshold of activation. That's the level of tension that someone takes immediate definitive action. So if he was doing what he's being told to do, he would have hit the threshold. We describe the threshold in many ways, but one way is saying like it's the level of tension at which you say enough. It's the level of disturbance at which you take immediate definitive action. The truth be told, he does not find his situation troublesome enough to bother doing anything definitive to change it. Obviously, he's going through some motions, but he isn't even feel enough tension to pay attention to what the doctor has told him about his diagnosis, prognosis, future, whatever it is. So he doesn't deflect. He just wasn't paying any attention. So I don't think he's trying to avoid it as much as he's just, I don't think he knows that he doesn't find his situation troublesome enough. At an intellectual level, I don't think he's actually ever said that to himself. But his behavior gives very strong evidence that he's okay with it.
Okay, so how does his daughter handle it? Does she keep explaining things? Because it seems to me that then she's taking responsibility.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. If explanation was convincing enough or sufficiently convincing enough to get him to change, it would have made him change.
Yeah.
The case that's been presented to him is insufficient. So his experience around his situation has been insufficient to prompt him to change. It hasn't been painful enough or threatening enough or inconvenient enough yet. But it will. So if she continues on the path that she's on, she's enabling him to stay down in power apathy or even apathy. But the moment she says, no, you're not going to take our advice, then you're on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Then it'll come back to him. So again, he's going like, what would I rather do? Give up the control, even though it's an illusion of control that I have over my own health and my own destiny, my own manliness, whatever.
Mhm.
That I don't want to give up the control I have over that in order to gain this control you say is going to make a difference to me. So a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. And so I'm just going to keep with the control I've got.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It becomes
this
a
is the thing.
comforting.
Let me just say one more thing, Brian. I want you to understand that behind his behavior, behind everything he's doing, is a very high level of intelligence.
Mhm.
He's very, very smart within the framework of what he believes to be true. Right?
Mhm.
Hmm.
And so we can't say he's an idiot or he's dumb or he's just being resistant or he's just a guy, No, no, no. There's an intelligence at work here. And what he's trying to say to everyone around him is, you have not convinced me. You have not shown me sufficient evidence in the form I need to see it in to convince me that by taking this action and by sacrificing the control I already have over other things, that I'm going to end up better off. And so
Yeah.
Wow.
all y'all just need to shut up and go away. Leave me alone.
That's what I do.
Right.
Yeah, I had lots of patients that were in that same predicament, and I remember reading Alan Deutschman's book, literally titled "Change or Die,"
Mm-hmm.
and
Mhm.
and the book was literally about research from John Hopkins patients who had a triple bypass. So, one bypass is a pretty painful surgery. So to have triple, that's just a lot. So he said even though they had to T's point, what he called the three F's. So they had the fear of the situation, of a physician telling them you can't just keep having bypass surgery, you're going to tap out sooner or later. They had the
Hmm.
facts of the situation and the sheer force of the situation. And astoundingly, 80% still did not change their behavior.
Right, because they do not find their current situation truly troublesome enough to bother doing anything definitive to change it. This is at the heart of that whole codependent enabler kind of role that people play in family psychodramas. Stop
Mhm.
rescuing a person who's truly not in sufficient distress yet. If if you're trying to rescue a family member from themselves, well, and they're not taking your help, with one large exception, I'll just say to you, the truth is that they're not really bothered by it to the degree you're bothered by it. So get out of this picture. I promise you, if you're right, their situation will worsen, and it will worsen to a point where they may finally decide to do something. So, why interfere with all that? Just say, I thought I was being helpful, when in reality, what you've probably done is delayed them from making the discovery they need to make to do that.
Right.
You know,
I
so
remember a Sifu in martial arts. I was telling him about a patient that I encountered after medical school in my internship. And he simply said this to me. He said, well, did he ask for your help?
there you go.
I
Right.
was like, wow, okay.
Yep. Yep. Well, that's the thing. Some of us are helpful people by nature. It's just our natural tendency is to want to go out there and do whatever we can to help people do whatever. And one of the things that I know that people who are, I would refer to, by the way, as a natural downgridder, you want to lower people's levels of tension so they're more comfortable, more relaxed, more mellow, more whatever. Well, the problem is that people who are natural downgraders have a tendency to rescue people who are not in distress.
Mm,
So think about that. So, sometimes people just want a bellyache for a few minutes and they're not asking anybody to do much of anything. They just wanted to vent. All right. So are you just venting or do you really want my help? You tell me. so,
Make a
so
difference I've heard that that's the difference between men and women. Women want, they vent to vent. And men always tell them, well, this is what you need to do. And women go, I didn't ask you for
No,
an
it's
answer."
absolutely true. Men tend to communicate in order to exchange information and resolve issues.
Right.
That's why we tend to speak much more fewer words. I'm sure they've done word count studies that show that men use fewer words.
And no argument there.
You know, because it's like, look, we're just trying to convey a piece of information, or we're trying to deal with an issue that needs to be dealt with. And when we've resolved that, we're talking about men-to-men communication. We're both just going to go on to what's next. I mean, guys can sit in a bar and have a drink and exchange no conversation whatsoever for greatly extended periods of time. And it feels perfectly, not only normal, but really good that you can just be with your buddies and you don't have to occupy every second with words. So yeah, and women tend to communicate in order to connect. And this, by the way, I learned this in Diane's lecture she gives on the cruise ship. It's all about, she says, she has a program called How to Talk to a Y Chromosome. And it's really all about this idea that there are differences between the way men process and convey information and women. And it does have some things to do with brain chemistry and some genetic issues, but it has more than anything else to do with socialization. And so we have natural tendency to be, to communicate in brevity. And yeah, so yeah.
So T,
That's
let me
why one
ask
of the
you
toughest,
this.
go right ahead, sorry.
So, in terms of like what Susan just described, how do you, as an individual, maintain your control so that you can stay like within that green circle? Because again, I get calls all the time from family. My brothers are physicians as well. They get calls, and so it becomes kind of this social dumping, I call it, because I'm
Right,
not interested in just talking about the same stuff again
right,
and again, and we
right.
know it. And then I get calls from my mom to kind of mediate, and that's a lot. That's a lot of
Yeah,
stuff.
and I
So
will
I
say
try to
that,
stay away from it.
yeah, on the family side of things, you got a different dynamic because some of the things we could do in other types of relationships just really aren't very readily available to us in a family situation. You know, you're kind of stuck with each other in many ways. So a different set of rules is going to apply. But let's say that you were experiencing the same thing in a professional a situation where for some reason or another you're trying to help this person and they either don't want the help or, in our lingo, they're not feeling out of control. And so, that's where they're at. And you're feeling frustrated because they're not feeling out of control. Or you're feeling like, oh, maybe I should try this. Maybe I should do this, in order to try to get them to change. So
Mm.
that dynamic to me is extremely common and very problematic in this one regard. And that is that we say, in order for you to help someone walk along their path of self-discovery, you must be detached, emotionally, physically, intellectually detached. You're an observer of this whole thing. The moment you start having feelings about it, or you start having vicarious feelings from what they should be feeling or whatever, you're no longer detached.
Yeah. And that's when I let go. So I've had that conversation with patients where I said, look, it can't be more important to me than it is to you. So
Right.
we have a problem.
Right. And if it is more important to you than it is to the patient, it is certainly a much deeper issue with you as that individual who's feeling
Hmm.
like you have to rescue people who don't want to be rescued.
Hmm.
Or again, it's not about they don't want to be rescued. They're not feeling 3 words. What are the 3 words, everybody? They're
Out
not
of
feeling
control.
they're not feeling out of control. So stop trying to give them the same argument again. Stop, by the way, another thing, these are the things people do when they don't think they're getting the response they're looking for. They will repeat the argument over and over again. And I mean relentlessly, repeat the argument over and over again. Like the number of times you hear the argument is what will ultimately tip the scales and convince you. Or they think, well, maybe it's not in the right form. So rather than tell them about it, maybe I should write them an email, maybe blah, blah, blah. Or they go, maybe it doesn't need to come from me. It needs to come from someone else. So they start to elicit other people into the drama. Or they go like, well, maybe if someone else said it in print, so I need to find articles for them or websites they can go to, then they'll be convinced. And when none of that works, it starts to reach the point of argument where now the belief is that I must not have been saying it loud enough in order for the person to respond to it. The bottom line is a simple, simple truth. They do not find your argument convincing enough to get them to hit a threshold of activation and do something definitive to change it. So stop putting yourself through the hell of trying to, convince the person of much of anything. It's their life, it's their situation. I promise you, it's going to get worse, or you were wrong. So either way, So yeah,
So T, can I go back a little bit?
please do.
When Brian was talking about when they asked him, did they ask for your help? If
Mhm.
they asked for your help, is that at least an indicator of change?
Yeah, I think it's a step in the right way. It shows me that they're at least in power, because remember, in power, we become open to learning more and the input of other people. And but again, remember that gathering information and taking action on that information are different things. So they could be very open to gathering the information, but that doesn't guarantee any kind of an outcome.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, T.
Yes, go ahead, Tim.
I was listening to John Maxwell, and he was pointing out that there are 4 reasons that people change. And he says 1 is they hurt enough that they have to.
Yep.
2, that they see enough that they are inspired to.
Yep.
3, that they learn enough that they want to. And then 4th, that they receive enough that they're able to. So I thought that was interesting.
Oh, yeah. And I can explain each one of those on the change grid if you want.
Yes.
That would be
So,
awesome.
all right, let's start with the first one again. They do it because they have to.
They hurt
They
enough
hurt.
that they have to.
Okay, so what level of tension are they at?
Stress.
They're up
Stress.
in stress. And so remember, and again, I because we've taught this program in a random order, I genuinely don't remember what we've covered and what we haven't covered. So I'll just quickly give you the concept. And if it's new to you guys or any of you, just say so and I'll go deeper for you. But definitive change only occurs 2 places on the change grid. Upgrid changes, so things that are happening that put you up in stress, power stress, maybe even the northern half of power. These are changes that are being driven by external factors. And so it's as though something else has come along, it's imposing itself very powerfully on your reality and saying like, oh, no, you have no choice. You cannot escape this. And so, and there's a long range of those possibilities, but nevertheless, change occurs upgrid. Upgrid changes are driven by external factors. Change can also occur outgrid. Outgrid changes are driven because now that's where drive is, and the person is going from being aware to making an intention to being engaged to executing on the task. They're all along that heart line right there in power, but they're on the outgrid side of things. Outgrid changes are driven by internal factors. So choices someone has made, realizations that have led them to seeing a new opportunity or whatever the case may be. All right, so going back to Tim's 4, the first one is that if you're in enough pain, you're up in stress, an outgrid or an upgrid change is driven by external factors, pain. I know you're feeling the pain internally, but nevertheless, it's because of something happening outside of your mind, if you will, that's really going on. So yep, the pain is making you feel out of control, or the anxiety that comes along with it. So what's the second one, Tim?
That they see enough that they are inspired to.
Excellent. Remember that power stress has a level of urgency around it. Power stress is where someone is motivated to go ahead and take action. I can even show you layers of the change grid that will have the words inspired, motivated, energized, those kinds of words that are right there in power stress. So power stress is a mindset that says, I know I need to do something and I'm going to do it right now. So they feel compelled either by an opportunity they don't want to miss, or some sort of a timing factor that just says now is the right time to move forward. So that sounds like a change that's still being driven by some external factors because they were being inspired. That's by somebody else. So yeah, I got into them. Maybe I'm feeling a little bit of an out-grid lean, but it's still up-grid and they could easily change because that's power stress, where they're seizing control, seizing an opportunity. What's the other two?
Learn enough that they want to.
Okay, so the moment you start talking about learning and wanting to, learning is about becoming more aware. The moment I say I want to do something, I am verbalizing an intention. Hopefully that will lead to someone becoming more engaged and ultimately doing whatever needs to be done. So that is where we're talking about satisfying a need. We're starting about wants and desires. Those have a little bit more tension than just satisfying a need does. But nevertheless, this is still a change that could very well occur, but it's slightly out-grid. And what's the fourth possibility?
Able to.
Receive enough that they're able to.
Yeah, now that's a form of support. Anytime we give someone any additional, think about the downgrid maneuvers. We normalize, simplify, restore resources, add resources. So I am giving things to people in that action. So that's a downgrid maneuver. I'm going to say that's going to be an upgrade situation that the person felt as though they did not have the resources necessary to do what needs to be done, and it was the lack of resources that was really holding them back, making them nervous. Someone came along and said, let me give you the support you need in whatever form that takes, and that should lower your tension enough that if you really want to do it, it could be you'd be moved a little bit out grid and take care of it there. So Tim, I think those parallel what we talk about as far as where change occurs on the change grid and how those different forms would overlay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, well, it's their brilliance. Always keep in mind, the exercise we do with all of our professionals is called, it's a circle of brilliance. We do this thing called the merging of brilliance. And so, keep in mind that the super vast majority of everything that we know and that we present as the knowledge base for tension management came as a result of merging other people's brilliance. So yeah, we like to think we're adding something to it in the subtleties and the nuances, the way we've integrated things, overlaid things. Obviously, the diagrams that we use, those might be our unique contribution, but truly, if you stumble across anything in your life, in your learning or whatever, and you go, this really makes sense, then bring it to the circle, because we promise you, if it makes sense standing by itself, it will integrate into the change grid. And our goal is to say, we don't need to have thousands upon thousands of separate pieces of knowledge or separate glimpses into parts of the way a human operates. How come we can't just merge it all together and have a single unified model that does a more practical description of how people operate and what we can do to help them?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I would argue we need more of that more than anything in today's humanity.
Well, you won't get an argument out of me. So, yeah. Oh, by the way, we could apply the 4 aspects of control to that very subject and see what's going on. So as far as the world as we're experiencing it today is concerned,
Yeah.
I want to gain this, I want to lose this, I don't want to gain that, and I don't want to lose this. And so people could really fill it all out.
Hey, this is an interesting point. I
Yeah.
looked up John Maxwell.
Yeah.
He's from Garden City, Michigan.
Yeah. Yeah, most brilliance on the planet comes out of Michigan.
High
yeah,
five.
I don't know if
Thank you,
anyone.
T.
That's not technically true.
Well, I'll need to see the research to be convinced. And then, by the way, I'll question who did the research. So,
Right, right.
yeah. And regardless of who did it, who funded it.
Michiganders, they're always at the lead.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. It's all that, yeah, fresh air, fresh water. Okay, anyway. So we've had a very nice conversation right now about this whole idea about where change is going to occur and give you guys a little glimpse into control. But I just wanted to bring to your attention that as you're walking the path, um, when you get into this idea about what do you really want, what do you desire, this is where control is really the subject matter. I want to gain control over certain things, and I don't want to lose control over other things. My desired situation has both, probably, I've already said this, a gaining or maintaining of control, but I don't want to lose control over things I already have and already value. That being said, far more often than not, in order for you to get to gain control in one area, you may very well have to lose control in other areas. So there's a trade-off that's going on. So for example, when all of us were heading off to college, the college education we wanted to gain required us to give up control over some other things in the short run. So what did we have to give up control over in order to get that education?
Money.
Money,
Yeah, a
okay?
lot of money.
And also what we were doing with our time, if you think
Time,
about that.
yeah.
I had to give up what I could have done or might have done if I wasn't involved in going to classes and all that sort of stuff. I might have had to give up certain goals or opportunities because this one, getting the education, was time consuming to the point that I just couldn't fit more things in.
Mhm.
So it's always going to be an exchange of control is going to happen. Very rarely is someone just going to hand you a whole pile of, new control. So yeah, I mean, maybe the lottery is an example where it's kind of falls in your lap all at once, but usually lottery winnings screw people up. So
Yeah, so those things kind of that's interesting because we're talking about behaviors that have a continuum. Talk about control. It
yeah,
creates like this illusion because I remember, we foreign trained physicians start medical school at 17. So you go right into the program. I remember how happy I was thinking I'm gonna have all this autonomy, didn't have to listen to my father anymore. And then I'm like, okay, you're studying like 12 hours a day. You barely had time for anything else. And
right.
so that created this illusion. And same thing with like the lottery winners. The research shows when they come into this instantized wealth, because they never really had any kind of blueprint of money, they lose it. And there's a
Right.
woman from New Jersey that somehow won the lottery 3 times in a row, which is unheard
Wow.
of. And she lives in a trailer park or died in a trailer park or something because her thing was just giving it all away.
Yeah, wow. Well, I forget who wrote an article or did some research around this, but they basically said that if you took all of the money in the world and evenly divided it and distributed it among all the people, the same people would still end up rich and the same people would still end up poor.
Yep.
Because it has nothing to do with the money itself. It
Mm.
has to do with your mindset around money and the behaviors that
Mhm.
you have around money. Well, in fact, I don't know if Shags has ever mentioned on the calls, but Shags specializes in one single form of coaching, and that's money coaching. And not money coaching as a financial advisor, although he has that background, a background in law as well. It's more about your relationship with money, where that came from, how it's playing out, how it affects. And so there's a lot to kind of explore around whether or not money gives anybody control. I will say it gives you an opportunity to gain
Mhm.
a greater amount of control, but ultimately how that money is handled is going to, make
And
all.
is it not the same thing with education?
Yeah,
With all the degrees, that then you don't work in the field that you went to college for, right?
Hmm.
So
So you're
it's the
saying
same,
I really should be an environmental toxicologist? Yeah, it's like you spent the money.
right,
Right.
right.
Yeah, it's true. No, it's absolutely true. Well, and there's still a whole lot of people out there that are getting degrees in fields that really aren't about making money.
Mhm.
Just things they find very intriguing or whatever they want to, do later. Okay, anyway, my point is that this idea about the four aspects of control allows us to do a deeper dive into, wait. One more thing I wanted to say, Brian, you said something about that at first people might seize control of what's going on. They'll do all the things that need to be done, but over time they stop doing those things. Did you say that or did I
It-
fantasize that?
no, it's sort of like it's a continuum. Like
Right.
over time, they don't realize that it's not just a one hit wonder, right? Like
Yeah.
you have to keep it going.
Right. And so what's happening from attention management perspective is that when the initial event occurred, they were up grid, they decided to do something about it. They got that under control. So keep in mind, up here I'm out of control. Here I am in power stress, seizing control. In power, I'm in control. Power apathy, I have an assumption of control, and apathy, an illusion of control. So up here I was feeling out of control. I did what I needed to do to seize that control. I enjoyed that control for a while. But then I didn't pay attention to other things that were impacting it or the fact that it needed to keep being done. And so what happens in that case is that I'm either going to become a more devoted follower, a more devoted student, a more devoted practitioner of whatever it is. Otherwise, my level of interest is going to crumble and I'll end up down in apathy about the subject. So right there, it's like, and I can think of plenty of these where people decide to make some sort of a health change and they realize that, oh, they just need to exercise more and they'll be fine. Well, yeah, if you exercise more, you'll be healthier, but not as healthy as you could be if you factored in some other things. Well, at that moment of awareness, some people are going to say, well, I'm going to keep running, but that's it. Some are going to say, well, then why should I even bother running? And others are going to say, well, then let's look at diet, let's look at sleep, let's look at whatever. And where they're doing is keeping themselves in that learning mode, feeling as though there's some sort of puzzle to be solved, some sort of process that needs to be formalized. These are where people become really successful at whatever their pursuit happens to be. Does that resonate, Brian?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And again, you guys don't drop off the call, so that's always a good sign. But I'm always worried that, I can explain just about anything from attention management perspective. But if that was something you want more questions answered on, I'm happy to do it. So let me know. Okay. Oh, hey, T. Um, so this four aspects of control comes into play when you want to do a deeper dive on the desired situation, because you don't just desire getting something. That's not the whole story. There are also things involved in that change that could end up being deal breakers. The cost for making the change could be too high. It might cost you something you desperately don't want to lose control of or whatever. So, I gave you this as an assignment last time around. I said, just think about some situation going on in your world, and your homework was to flesh out a little bit about what do you hope to gain? What do you hope to lose? What don't you want to gain? What don't you want to lose? Did any of you have time to fill one of these out?
Yeah, well,
All
Oz
right.
and I
So,
filled out we did it on the path of self-discovery.
Yeah, but I knew
perfect.
about this too, didn't
Yeah,
you?
Yeah,
As far-
yeah.
kind
Well,
of.
ultimately, you are on the path. This is a deeper dive into the green step of it, and I'll give you deeper dives into some of the other colors as well. So tell a little bit about your experience with the path and with the aspects, if you're comfortable sharing that.
Um, I, I feel like I have a document now I can keep and review, and as I go through the process, activities of what I need to do, I can refer to this.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
wait a minute, okay, I don't want to just be comfortable with the choice. I want it to be the best choice I know of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. And
My problem, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, just so you guys know, in addition to having this quick little form, we do have this as a full journal kind of a format where you can really flesh out all the solutions and, just gives you a lot more room. It's just a rearrangement of stuff. But you're right, you can use this as a tool to map something out and then monitor your progress as you're working your way through it. Andrea, what were you adding there?
Well, mine was a little more urgent, and I was a slight bit of panic about it. And
Okay.
sitting down and going through this, I'm like, oh, we're supposed to do this homework for T. This is perfect. It really calmed me down, and I literally found a path and I made progress on it.
Ex-
Major progress.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. And so let me just kind of tell you guys why we call it what we call it and what its role is supposed to be. This is the path of self-discovery. We really believe that if we can give people just a little bit of structure to organize their thoughts, their level of tension will take care of itself. So rather than us walking the path on their behalf and telling them, this is your situation and this is what you should want and this is what's in your way and this, why would we do that? If we can help that person to use their own faculties to get to their own conclusion, that's great all by itself as a way to manage tension, as a way to help a person really own their wisdom. Remember, the subtitle, The Oracle of the Self, is exploring the wisdom within. So this is your wisdom working all out. We're just organizing it a little bit. And by the way, by the end of it, I'll have to come at this a different way. If we had told them what to do, we might get a lot more pushback and a lot more objections or whatever, compared to if they told themselves what to do. So rather than me tell them any of this stuff, I would rather find a creative way to pull the words out of their own mouth, to somehow or another let them discover it all for themselves, because if it comes out of your mouth, it's gospel. Where if it came out of my mouth, it's at best a suggestion, So there's a lot of benefit to using the path. So, all right, so you said that it helped you to lower your level of productive tension around that. Let me ask you, did it help you to detach from whatever the situation?
Oh, 1,000, yeah, because, yeah, absolutely. I was feeling completely immersed and completely underwater and completely holy smoke.
And
I don't know how
so
I'm
how was that helping either party or ultimately hurting either party for the detachment to not have been where you wanted it to be?
Well, I wasn't going to get anything done. And my fear was I wasn't able to do this. And I would have tried to do something, and I would have gone at it in a much more haphazard way. But this made me really think about it made me calm down, because and detach and realize what I didn't have, what I didn't know, how I could get it, where I could get that information, and how I could develop it into helping me do the task.
Right, excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, let me slide something in to explain your dynamic a little bit. We haven't overlaid the path on the ChangeGrid yet, but one of the things that you can see in other illustrations we have is that each one of these levels of tension has one of the colors of the path associated with it. And so red, all that intuitive, emotional, internal sorts of stuff, all those feelings, all that sort of stuff, limbic stuff going on, that's all very far up grid. And so if we stay up there, then what's happening here. It's feeling more and more, well, out of control. And we're not able to resolve things. We have a lot of circular thinking, stuff happens up there. Well, you add a little bit of structure, and suddenly you get down to maybe the green step. The green step is now a lot more of the positive sorts of things that you might want to be accomplishing. That moved you down grid. And then we moved slightly up grid at the black step, because that's where the obstacles are identified. And certainly it was all very green and lush and beautiful until you realize you have to cross a river. So we're going to pop up grid ever so slightly so we can get back into the solutions that need to be. put forth, etc. So we can talk about how the colors play out as they overlay on the change grid and how we move from one to the next to end up where we ultimately want to be. But you ended up, as you said, more detached. That's the center of the change grid. And not only is the detachment good for everybody who's involved, but this also means that a lot of that red thinking stuff has now been, I'm going to say, augmented by and ultimately suppressed by logic. Here's where the logic lives. And so you're able to figure something out. You can't figure stuff out upgrid. This is the world of your limbic system happening. I need to bring my cortex into play. That's what's happening more center grid. By the way, the center of the grid is also where serotonin ends up being produced in sufficient quantities for you to feel that things are possible. You know, serotonin is, I don't know what its characteristic is. Brian, unmute. What's its nickname? It's not the feel-good emotion. That's the neurotransmitter. That's dopamine. But I think serotonin is more about feeling at peace.
Yeah, feeling at peace and calm.
Yeah. So this is more of the centering sort of neurotransmitter that you really are looking for, because from the center of all of the change grid, all things are possible and they're all manageable. So you start getting too far away in any direction, it's going to become less and less manageable because the logic is being subordinated to emotions, thoughts, feelings, whatever that might be distorting what's going on. Sorry, this has just become a really advanced program.
No,
As long
this
as you guys are okay with it, I'm okay with it. So
I think it would. I think it would be fun to look at that
Yeah.
colors in terms of the path.
sure.
But I was thinking like with similar to Anja's experience, I was using it for like to have a lot of conversations with teams about productivity. And for me, productivity, particularly from the perspective of just checking something off your list, I think it becomes a distraction. So the whole path, like
Yeah.
it makes sense to me to even focus on like, are you even doing the right things, let alone trying to do it efficiently? Are you focusing on the right things to start with, right?
Yeah, well, let's rewind a little further and say, where on the change grid does maximum productivity naturally occur? So
Right.
what would you guys say? It's going to be a little bit upgrade, certainly not up in stress. Up in stress, if you guys pull out your cheat sheet on the 5 levels of tension, you'll see that stress is characterized by a whole lot of activity, but activity and productivity are more often than not very different things. So so not that far up, but you're right. If we're up here in northern power stress, we now have got that that sense of urgency, if you will, that's moving us to be productive, or we have an awareness of a problem. Here I am in awareness. We're making an intention to deal with it. That's good productivity happening. What else does productivity include?
Trying to get somewhere, trying to.
Yeah, getting some stuff done. So a little bit of this outgrid energy.
Engagement.
So this right here, where I'm kind of spiraling around right now, this is the sweet spot for productivity. You have enough tension that it's got your attention and enough drive that you're going to get it done. So right here, this is where maximum productivity naturally exists. Now, that means going back to Brian's situation, let's say I'm a manager. I've got 2 choices. I either need to make you be more productive, or I need to enable you to be more productive. So in the long run, which is going to serve our interests better?
Enable.
Enabling it, because if I've got to police you into being productive with all kinds of metrics and you know, just punishments and points against you and blah blah blah, I'm not moving you to the ideal place on the change grid for productivity. I'm moving you to a place where you just say, I'm being threatened, I need to immediately deal with the threat, and the easiest way to do the threat is to comply. Well, compliance is not a natural piece of you know, great productivity. This is about you really believing that it's true, that it is right. You know how to do it. It's challenging enough that it's engaging. it's meaningful enough that there's a mission behind it, this is where productivity occurs. So Brian, the first thing I would say is, well, where's the person starting from? Are they down grid? Are they too far up grid, in grid, out grid? Where are they?
Many of them are downgrade because
Down
the,
grid.
the expertise, if you will, but you see a lot of positions that way to have the ego there
Yes.
because it's a very hierarchical kind of space where, physician is in charge kind of thing. And you look down on nurses and others, which is just sheer nonsense. But
Yeah, no, it's
many
true.
of them are
Well,
downgrade.
and so let's talk a little bit about productivity as we might encounter it, down grid. And so again, all of you guys can look at, again, this is the oracle of the self. And so you got to apply this to your own life, or we're talking about something totally different. But you do have to kind of realize that there is a certain level of task completion that can occur down grid. I don't think I'm going to call it productivity, because I think productivity, there's a little bit more involved. You are more intellectually involved. You are more physically involved. That feels a lot better than the stuff you happen to get done on autopilot,
Mhm.
right?
See, I think activity is engagement and productivity is execution.
Yeah, I
Mm.
think, and again, that's going to be up here. I think you're absolutely right. That's productivity. But we do accomplish things down in apathy. And even accomplish feels like I'm giving you more credit. I'm just saying some things get checked off the list while you're down in apathy about them. It's just, like if talk about a routine household sort of an activity, doing the laundry, doing the dishes, whatever. A lot of these things we get done because we zone out, we daydream while we're doing it. And so it's like just something to keep us busy. Or, at a certain level, we know it needs to get taken care of. So we can only delay it for so long. So that's still, to me, that's a task that's being completed. Just realize there is a downgrade intention. There is a downgrade engagement. I'm just talking about stuff that just happens coincidentally. What do I say? Yeah, I don't want to label that as productivity, but I'll tell you that there's a lot of people in an organization that come to work and they go through the motions all day long and they get a certain set of work done, but I don't think they're anywhere near as productive as they could have been. I don't think they're working the mission. I don't think they're developing further. They just have a high level of ability to handle the tasks that they have, low level of challenge. They're down here, and they might even be able to achieve minimum performance standards on their evaluations at work. But you guys have known plenty of these people who do just enough. They take the easy road. They stay under the radar. Do you really want to label what they've done at the end of the day as productivity?
No.
Well, in performance management systems, we label that as meeting the minimum requirements of the role.
Right.
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 Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
There's a lot of people.
I call it sustainable mediocrity.
Sustainable mediocrity. Yeah. And by the way, keep in mind that for a lot of people, they could be highly educated, highly accomplished. They might have every laurel that you can imagine having, and anyone on the outside would hold them in a place of great marvel. But the truth is, they've never done anything else. And over the course of time, it's become more and more and more routine and predictable. And keep in mind that apathy is the unavoidable side effect of mastery. I don't even think I've told you guys that. Maybe in other trainings you've gone through with me, but apathy is the unavoidable side effect of mastery. And so the pursuit of mastery is an interesting thing. And when you do achieve mastery, okay, we can have a little party. But now the question is, now what? Are you just going to stay there doing the same thing the same way that you've mastered it? Because you're going to end up deep down in apathy. Well, when we're doing our work with corporations, we often say to them that they spend too much time dealing with the people that are up grid. The people that are outgrid, the guys have to keep an eye on, because outgrid people can stir up trouble because they get so driven. They create rules on the fly in order to get a deal or whatever, so that they can stir stuff up. These people are demanding attention. Who's getting ignored? It's the people that are downgrade. And so we've often said to corporate clients, you are not paying attention to your greatest untapped resource. If you just took this pile of people, and by the way, over the period of time, the majority of your employees are going to end up in apathy the majority of the time. So yeah, they're meeting minimum performance standards, but you have invested heavily in creating this apathy in your organization, when you should have been raising the bar on these people, really managing them to get back into a productive sort of place on the change grid. And I'll add one more horrible realization to the pile, and that's that, let's say that I'm a different company. I'm a similar company to the one where we've got all these people that are in apathy, and I go like, we need some talent to populate our company. Let's go into their company and steal all these performers from them, all these experts they've had for years and years. Well, on the one hand, that might sound like a reasonable strategy, except for one very big problem. All you're really doing is importing that company's apathy into your company. So yeah, for a little while, the person in the new position is going to go like, it's a new company, there's new clients, so I might be engaged for a while. But if it's fundamentally the same job, the same way, and all they've done is import me, I'm going to end up in apathy here as well. And so we have lots of exercises we do around choosing the right person for the right role. But I'll tell you that apathy is not one that's often chosen. So apathy is evidence that your management team and leadership team are not very good managers or leaders. So, yeah. Okay, but you got a lot more of these people, and how do they survive in corporate settings? Because they don't pull any attention to themselves. They're quiet. And so, they're doing the job. They know how to do the job. They're not demanding your attention. They don't even want your attention. So, so they can remain indefinitely as
Yeah, I call that
entire
social, they're
employee.
social loafing. They're kind of like just kind of sitting back. They say
Social loafing, yeah.
just getting by.
We'll say, let's see, retiring in place. What other words do we have for these people?
I
they're
love
off of-
sustainable mediocrity. That is just,
I like that one a lot too.
yeah.
Sustainable mediocrity. Well, who dropped the ball? Whose job is it to keep these people more engaged, more productive, more whatever? Well, one of the things that you guys are learning, and we'll learn more when we get to the black step, is that there are 4 root causes of human struggle and failure. And one of those is what we find very far down grid, and it's going to end up causing a reflection on a lack of management. And by the way, we can talk about managers as external beings, but you guys are all self-managers, right? This is the oracle of the self. This is about how you get the most out of you. And so you have to understand that there may be some messages you've been giving yourself or not giving yourself that have ended up fostering this downgrid sort of energy that you have around whatever the specific subject happens to be. And obviously, if you've got a big enough pile of things that are down in apathy, then you become, by default, someone who's down in apathy. Maybe we can find out one thing one day that'll just help them get out of this, because depression waits for you down here. So,
Sure.
yeah,
Wait.
okay. Yep, go ahead, Anja.
The only thing I was going to say is that what I have found is that when people go through this cycle of, and I forget what it's called, but they go down into numbness.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the last thing where they've gone through their frustration, anger, frustration, everything else. And when
Yep.
they're down in there, they're actually causing other people to go down there with them.
Right.
Because people say, well, why should I care?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a kind of a giving up. Again, if we go back to the 4 F's of survival, the people who are upgrid are going to flee if they can. They're going to run. The people that are outgrid are going to which one?
Fight.
They're going to fight. The person who is down grid freezes. They freeze because they just go, and maybe it's giving up. Maybe they're smart enough to know that sometimes the smartest thing you can do is play dead. So they're going to ultimately freeze in place and do that. And by the way, they're frozen emotionally as well. They're frozen intellectually. I just gave you a physical example. And the person who's too far in grid fades. They try to disappear into the background. So depending on the situation you're in, one of these could serve you far better than the other three. So it's good to be good at all four of them.
So Tay, you said you have a journal of each of those steps of the path, like the four aspects of control with the green, you have that of the white and the others. Do you have the visual of that, or is
yeah,
that...
I'll see if I can find it, because it's actually one of the things I wanted to resurrect based on the work I've been doing on the website, the Oracle of the Self and all that. But we used to do 2 different guided coaching experiences for clients. One was called Journey, and Journey was a very simple 4-session kind of exploration of a particular issue or area that the client wanted to talk about. So it was really very much driven by what is the subject area. And then the other one was Quest. And Quest is 13 meetings. It goes a much deeper, much broader. And so you could apply Quest as either 13 fit into a single quarter or 13 over the course of a year. So you do an initial one and then one every week, or for 12 more weeks, or every quarter, every month for the rest of the year. So that's Quest. Well, Quest had its own workbook. And that workbook is exactly what I'm talking about here. So I'll see if I can find the Quest workbook. And Journey has worksheets that are more robust, but it didn't need to be as involved because you're only looking at the one subject area. So I'll see if I can find the handouts for Journey and the workbook for Quest.
Oh, that would be fun. That Quest reminds me of Benjamin Franklin's 13 by 4. Like he would focus on these 13 virtues, and he would take one a week. So 13 times 4 is 52. So that's the 52 weeks of the year. And that's how he learned to master these different characteristics and traits that he was known for. So I think that Quest would be quite interesting.
Well, I stumbled across someone else. I don't think they ever did anything about it, but they wanted to map to something along those lines, but it was using a deck of cards. And so that every week you would either be the ace 2, 3, 4, 5 of whatever the suit happens to be. And he would say, like, if we're going to be talking about the King of Diamonds, the King of Diamonds is all about the male mindset around money. And the Queen of Diamonds would be the female, and the Jack of Diamonds would be whoever is subordinate to the king and queen or whatever. And then they'd have another one where it was going to be hearts. How's the same thing apply to love and all this? And I thought, well, that's all very clever, but let me know how that turns out. We never heard anything about it, so it became a bit overwhelming. Honestly, Quest is big enough work for somebody. I mean, you think about that, that's a year-long development plan, or a quarter if they're in a bigger hurry. Do that either way they wanted to do it is fine with us. But yeah, so I'll see if I can find those resource materials and share with you guys.
Excellent, thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Okay, any questions? We still haven't done what we started to do. We still haven't done.
Full.
Oh, again, I'm okay with that. We are governed by a single rule. Everything tension management has only one rule. What's our rule? Anybody?
People pay attention to where they find attention.
That's it. Pay attention to tension, because people pay attention to where they find their tension. I got to meet you all where you are. And if you find a subject that is of interest to you, it's piqued your curiosity, it's raised your tension. And so I want to pay attention to that. Now, whether I address it very quickly and move on, it's all based on everybody else. So are other people contributing? Are they finding it interesting? Is it having meaning to them? In which case, well, we're just going to go with it then. So yeah, this really is the most free-form thing I have ever done in 45 years. of being a
Well,
trainer.
don't take my silence as apathy. When I'm quiet, it just means I'm overwhelmed and really affected by what you're talking about, really.
Well, I'm very, I'm
fascinating.
glad to know that. If you are ever actually feeling overwhelmed, don't hesitate to just chime in and say, I got a question, repeat that, slow that down, or what? Anything like that. Because we
You
believe,
tend to do that. You tend to do that.
yeah, well, I mean, you really, you need to.
Well,
You
but I mean, you do it intuitively. Like I didn't get I missed one of the heard enough, inspired enough, learned enough, able enough. I was trying to write notes fast enough and I missed one of them. And sure enough, you went right back through it.
Yeah, well, because if someone's going to bring up a model, I
Yeah.
can't not take a look for a moment and go like, does that overlay? How does that resonate with what we know
It
about
so
tension
resonates.
management?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, wow.
Well, I think we're getting pretty close, or I'd like to think that by the time my life is over, that we've developed this to the
Are
point where
you
we can
planning
say,
an exit?
well, I'm not planning it, but there's no reason why I shouldn't already make my desires known. And by the way, if anyone ever tells you otherwise, yes, it is true that I want 50 tap dancing mourners. Is that too much to ask for?
I can start right now.
You're the ones with the dance connections. It would be nice if it was a mix of tap, though, not just American tap, not just Irish tap. So yeah, but 50 tap dancing mourners would be a very nice thing.
Well,
Is
I'll
it
have to include
good?
others because I only know American.
Yeah,
they
well,
Be good?
go ahead, T.
Do they have to be good?
No, because, well, I imagine they're going to be sobbing uncontrollably. And so what kind of a performance can I expect? So,
Okay, 50 tappers who know you and love you. Okay, any more? Any
uh,
more
well,
instructions?
it's nice if they
Don't
could
have
bring
to
a
be
good,
good.
it's nice if they could bring a good dish for the potluck afterwards.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah. All right. Okay, that's enough for today. So thanks, everybody. We will pick up
Thank
with
you.
next time around. Thanks. Bye for now.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye.
Yeah.